Welcome to our first committee meeting of the new year. Thank you for being here. And thank you for everyone who came out to the Ware Center to participate in the inauguration and State of the City address with us. First, we'll go to the roll call of members. Mr. Harris, please.
Yes, Mr. President. Mr. Arroyo.
Here.
Ms. Bakay.
Here.
Mr. Kalexty.
Yeah.
Mr. Craig. I'm sorry, Ms. Craig.
Here.
Ms. Diaz.
Here.
And Mr. Garcia Molina.
Here.
And President Smith Waddell.
Here. Before we move to the minutes, I neglected to do this yesterday and name the heads of the standing committees of council. For the rest, for the next 2 years until reorganization, or really, until something else happens, I appoint Councilor Arroyo as chair of the Economic Development Committee. I appoint Councilor Bakay to chair the Finance Committee. I appoint Councilor Craig to chair the Community Development Committee. I appoint Councilor Kalixte to chair the Personnel Committee. I appoint Councilor Diaz to chair the Public Safety Committee. And I appoint Councilor Garcia Molina to chair the Public Works Committee. And for my term as Council President, I appoint Amanda Bakay as Vice President of Lancaster City Council. My apologies for neglecting to do that yesterday evening. Actually, we can give a round of applause to Councilor Bakay. Welcome back, y'all. Welcome to the dais, Councilor Kalixte. We are very proud to have you with us. We will go then to the approval of the December 6th and December 11th, 2021 committee meeting minutes. I'll hear a motion.
Motion to approve both minutes.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Are there any council comments on the two bodies of minutes? Hearing none, Mr. Harris.
Mr. Arroyo.
Aye.
Ms. Bakay.
Aye.
Mr. Kalexty.
Aye.
Ms. Craig.
Aye.
Ms. Diaz.
Aye.
Mr. Garcia Molina.
Aye.
And President Smith Waddell.
Aye. Excellent. Councilor Kalixte, with your permission, I would like to move the Personnel Committee to after the Finance Committee this evening. We had a gentleman coming for his Personnel Committee nomination as requested by Council at the end of last year. So normally we do Personnel first, but since you are the chair, I would ask your permission to do the Personnel Committee second.
No problem.
Great.
Accept it.
Thank you. In that case, actually, Councilor Kalixte, can I take that back?
No problem. It didn't last long.
Well, in that case, Personnel Committee, Councilor Kalixte, take it away.
Okay, for the Personnel Committee, we have the nomination of Daniel Falcon for appointment to the City Revitalization and Improvement Zone Authority. And announcement of orientation training session.
So yeah, we can just start with the first item.
Yes, Mr. Daniel Falcon.
Falcone is sitting just in front of you.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Hi.
So typically what happens, it's okay, we all do this the first time. Councilor Kalixte, so typically first, you ask for, you would ask for a motion. Oh, you know what? I'm so sorry. Hold on a second. Need to, brief technical, hold on. This is my error. Councilor Bakay and Councilor Garcia Molina for the appointment, and then you would ask for a second, and you could ask Mr. Falcone to provide. You can ask Mr. Falcone to provide some comments as to his appointment, and then you could ask for a vote by saying all in favor.
Okay.
And then Mr. Harris can help you do the rest of it.
Okay. All right. Can I have a motion for approval of Mr. Falcon from you, Mrs. Baker, and Councilor Arroyo?
Garcia Molina, are you
Oh.
here? I'll make sure
Garcia
everybody.
Molina.
Motion to approve?
Second.
All right, and Mr. Falcon, can I, oh, oh my God.
You're okay. Mr. Falcone, hey, so thank you for being here this evening. At the December meeting, council just wanted to ask you to come in and tell us a little bit about why you are interested in serving on for the CRIS board, right? For the City Revitalization and Improvement Zone board, and just, have the opportunity to engage with council before we move forward. So this is your opportunity.
Well, I was asked by Senator Martin's office if I'd consider serving on the board. And considering I have businesses downtown and I get to see firsthand what the CRIS project does for our community, I thought it'd be a good opportunity for me to give back. So I agreed to serve if you guys will have me.
Okay, and talking to Mr. Falcon, and can I have,
You just say, if you don't, you can offer other counselors the opportunity to ask questions.
all right, if there's any other councilor has any comment about?
I do, Counselor. Thank you, Mr. Falcone. I really appreciate you coming forward and providing us the opportunity to connect with you. I am aware of the businesses that you have, and especially the Puerto Rican restaurant that you have going on. As a Puerto Rican, I really appreciate you bringing that to the community. I personally just wanted the community to have the opportunity to talk to you and for us to have the opportunity to talk to you before we move forward. So I was just kind of hoping if you could let us know, like, what's your hope for being a part of the CRIS board?
I didn't understand.
What's your hope for being a part of the CRIS board?
What was my what?
Your hope.
My hope?
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, the mask.
The mask get real tricky.
What was my hope? I don't understand the question. Like,
What's your goal of being part of the CRIS
oh,
board?
what's my goal on the CRIS board? Well, I understand they make important decisions that impact our community. I know a few small businesses that were able to receive some help from the CRIS board. I learned that the industry that I'm in, the restaurant and bar industry, they contribute a lot to the funding of this board. And so again, I just thought it'd be a good opportunity to give back, and being that I'm already involved in the CRIS zone and in the industry that helps fund this, I just thought it'd be a good way to give back.
Yeah, I think that's so true. Small businesses, especially the restaurant industry, given the past 2 years that we've had, I think needs more representation. So I'm grateful that you are here to represent. Thank you. That's it, Counselor.
Councilor Calixte, if I may. Mr. Falcone, I just want to say that we appreciate you being here with us tonight. It's important for us to see the folks that are getting nominated to boards, commissions, and authorities. So we appreciate you taking the time to come out, and also appreciating your willingness to serve. As a business owner, it's really important, and I appreciate that you've benefited from the CRIS, and hoping that you'll bring some of that experience into serving.
Thank you.
So thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
If I may, Councilor Calixte? Yeah. Just more of a quick comment. I've had the pleasure of knowing Mr. Falcone for quite a bit, and very excited to have his expertise on the CRIS board as well. I think for the last couple of decades, he's not only grown successful small business in the community, but has also contributed to developing the workforce and being an inspiration to the Latino community. So just want to thank you for serving, and I think it's going to be a great perspective that we have on the CRIS board. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So is there any other comments?
Just one, I thank you for coming forward, and we appreciate the partnership that we have with Senator Martin, and this is just for the benefit of council and public, that in the previous, when the CRIS was established under then Senator Smucker and then Mayor Gray, there was a split between appointments, and so we appreciate the opportunity, recognizing that you were selected by Senator Martin, but that you came here tonight. Just as Councilor Bakay mentioned, it's good to see that. And then also just want to acknowledge that Jeremy Young is here as a liaison to the CRIS board, as well as Director Dels is also a liaison to the CRIS board. Meetings are held monthly, and we were pleasantly surprised, even given 2020, that there are funds that are available and decisions are being made about investments into the CRIS districts, even in light of, or despite the pandemic. And so there is a lot of work to be done, and I fully expect you, Mr. Falcone, to be in the thick of it right away. And so we appreciate you being here tonight, and thank you, Jeremy, for coming as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Mr. Harris, can we pass for a vote?
I'm sorry?
Can we pass to a vote for the appointment of,
You can actually just say all in favor to your committee members.
okay, all in favors?
Aye.
Okay.
That's the fun part.
Mr. Falcone, thank you. Your nomination has been moved forward, and we appreciate not only your role in the Lancaster community, but also you taking the time to come before us this evening.
All right, thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Give this one, and I believe Patrick will be. So you can just call him.
Patrick?
Yep, for the announcement. Yep. Mr.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, Mr. Hopkins, will you be doing the announcement for the, or Mr. Harris, who has the?
I can.
Okay, thank you.
Last April, City Council passed a resolution requiring orientation training for appointees to boards, commissions, and authorities. It's taken us a while to get that off the ground with the pandemic, but we'll be doing the first one of those on this Thursday, January 6th. And those will occur going forward on a quarterly basis. There has been, I think, 32 people that were invited to attend, and we've gotten responses from most of them. And that orientation and training will be done by Solicitor Barry Handwerger and Administrative Service Director Patrick Hopkins.
Okay. Thank you. So now we go to the Finance Committee.
Yeah, you're done. You can hand it back to me.
All right. So, Mr. President, it's your turn.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. And thank you, everybody, for bearing with. We go then to the Finance Committee, chaired by Councilor Bakay, whose standing members are Councilor Garcia Molina and Councilor Diaz, who's joining us by phone.
Thank you very much, Council President. The Finance Committee has 4 items on our agenda this evening. The first is Resolution Number 5 of 2022, authorizing a funding project for the Lancaster Higher Education Authority. We have representatives to the Higher Education Authority here this evening to speak on this.
They are behind us.
Oh, look at that. Amazing. Okay, so it looks like we have Dan Blakinger and Jonathan Cox. Are Sean and Richard also? Is everyone on
Yeah.
here for this? Okay, great.
And
Technology is wonderful. All right, good evening, gentlemen. Want to make sure they can hear us? Perhaps?
I hope so. Dan, can you hear us?
Oh,
Yeah, you are muted.
Janet or Dan?
I'm sorry, I've seen your lips move, but I can't hear you.
are we going to get audio? off of-
I'm sorry.
How
Now
about,
can you hear me?
let's try that again. Dan, can you try that again? Maybe not.
Dan, okay. We weren't getting audio through, but I,
Are you getting it now?
yes.
We are. Gentlemen, go right ahead. Sorry for the delay. I think we've got it figured out.
Maybe? Okay, I think we got everybody. Ms. Baker, I think you can go ahead.
Okay. Good evening, gentlemen on Zoom. Thank you for joining us. We're speaking about the resolution number 5 for the Higher Education Authority. Whoever wants to take it away for us to talk us through this, please go ahead.
We're having trouble hearing you. I think you're asking who's going to address this, and that should be me. I'm solicitor for the Lancaster Higher Education Authority. This is Dan Piking. You want me to proceed to describe the project briefly?
Good evening, Mr. Blakinger. Yes, please go ahead.
So the Municipality Authorities Act requires that all municipal authorities, if they're going to do tax-exempt financing projects, come to the municipality that created them in order to have the municipality determine that this is in the interest of the health and welfare of the community. So that's what this resolution is. It's what we always call the health and welfare resolution. It's the city council declaring that this is for the benefit of the health and welfare of the community. The specific project involved in this case is the Harrisburg Area Community College project. It involves a refunding of 2 different bond issues they did in 2012 and 2014, and some capital projects related to a guaranteed energy savings agreement. So that's what the project involved. On the Zoom right now is John Cox, who's bond counsel, and Rich Cardamone, who's Assistant Vice President of Finance at HAC. So if you have questions, certainly they can answer possibly any specific questions about the project. We've had these kinds of projects come before City Council before, involving the Lancaster Municipal Authority, Lancaster Higher Education Authority. So this is, and the Lancaster Higher Education Authority did already approve this project a few weeks ago and has already done a previous project for HAC in the past. Are there any questions for me?
Thank you, Mr. Blakinger. The only question that I have, and I know that it is part of the resolution, but I think it's important to mention, is that this agreement allows this financing to happen, but doesn't directly obligate the city or the taxpayers in any way, shape, or form in the project. That is correct, yes?
I'm having trouble understanding, but I think your question was whether this obligates the city of Lancaster for any part of the project. Is that?
That's right. I just wanted to make sure that we address that. It is part of the resolution.
Yeah, this does not obligate the city in any way for any, it's not the issuer, it's not going to be involved in any of the documentation and is not obligated in any way for the project. Even the Higher Education Authority has very limited liability in the project, but it is the issuer, but the city has no liability or obligation with respect to the project.
Thank you very much. Are there any other questions from members of the committee or other members of council?
I could not hear that. If Bernie would repeat, maybe I'll.
I'm sorry, she was asking whether or not there was questions from other members of the committee or from council.
Okay, I thought that was for me. You see, I couldn't tell.
Members of the public? All right, hearing none, I'll take a motion.
Motion to approve?
The other standing member of the, yeah, there we go.
Got it. And just to clarify, this is a motion to move this forward to council on the 11th?
11th.
Thank you very much. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Sorry, Jen was the second?
She did second, yes.
Okay.
I think we have a little bit of a delay. Thank you very much.
Okay, that one's approved.
Okay, so if you could thank everyone who is on Zoom for this. I know that they're having trouble hearing me, so thank you, Bernie.
Okay, the resolution regarding HAC was moved to the full council meeting on the 11th.
Terrific. All right, we're going to move then to resolution number 6, which is authorizing a funding project for the municipal authority. Similarly, are we also speaking to Mr. Blakinger for this one?
Yes, we are.
Great. Mr. Blakinger. We are speaking on the municipal authority project. If you could give us the background on this one.
Asking for background on the municipal authority project.
Okay. Couldn't hear the question. This
Yes,
is
I'm
Dan
sorry.
Blakinger again. I'm also solicitor for the Lancaster Municipal Authority, so this project is pretty much the same approval being requested. It's the health and welfare resolution for this project. The Lancaster Municipal Authority approved a week or so ago. And this project is for Homestead Village. It's a $33 million project. I'm sorry, $70 million project. It involves a refunding of some outstanding issue, and it also involves mostly the construction of independent living and personal care apartments at the campus, and some other miscellaneous capital improvements. Sean Frederick, who is counsel for Homestead Village as well as bond counsel, and Doug Motter, who's president at Homestead Village, are also on here if there are questions. But this is pretty much the same kind of resolution you just had for the Lancaster Higher Education Authority.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions or comments from the committee? Or other members of council? Or from the public? Don't all jump up at once. All right, then I will hear a motion.
Motion to move Administration Resolution Number 6, 2022 to the January 11th meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Homestead Village resolution is moved to the full council meeting on the 11th.
Okay. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much, Mr. Blakinger. Thank you for your time.
Yep. Bye.
And thank you for everyone for bearing with us while we work with technology. It's fun. All right, the next item on the Finance Committee agenda this evening is Bill number 1, 2022, authorizing a cable franchise agreement. I believe, Mr. Handberger, you'll be speaking to this evening. And thank you for providing us with some background information prior to this meeting.
My pleasure. Good evening. Welcome to all. And congratulations to all of you who were recently appointed or re-elected.
Mr. Handberger, is there a microphone at that? There is, okay.
Does that work better?
Yes, and I
There we
just
go.
couldn't see it from here. Thank you very
No
much.
problem. So I forwarded you a memo earlier today, summarizing most of what you have in front of you. This is every 10-year process, essentially, under the Telecommunications Act. We are entitled to enter into a franchise agreement with cable providers in the municipality. As of today, the only cable franchise operator within the city is Comcast, Southeast Pennsylvania LLC, better known as Comcast. We have, knowing that our existing 10-year agreement is coming to expire soon, we engaged our telecommunications law firm, Cohen Law Group, who's negotiated multitudes of agreements with Comcast for both us and other municipalities throughout the state to negotiate a franchise agreement, which is the subject of the ordinance. In general, we are entitled to receive 5%, up to 5% of the gross revenues from Comcast. Gross revenues are defined strictly under the Telecommunications Act. For everybody's reference, they do not include internet fees. They do not include phone fees. They are essentially the telecommunications fee, the TV fee that gets paid. The Act allows us to negotiate a franchise agreement. It's non-exclusive, so if another company wants to come in and offer competitive services, we would be entitled to have a franchise agreement with that entity. This agreement contains several key provisions for the city, most of which were in your previously existing ordinance, some clarifications based on what's happened over the last 10 years. The primary clarification deals with the bundling of services and making sure that we are not losing money as a result of what Comcast calls its triple play, so that the allocation of funds does properly come to the city. There's an audit feature. I would note that we did recently have an audit performed and found that there were no underpayments made by Comcast to us of the franchise fees under the current agreement. Those franchise fees are paid quarterly. It contains many of the same provisions regarding customer service that are in your existing franchise agreement, including telephone service, time of length on the phone, time for service, window service areas, for example, 4-hour slots. The term of this agreement will be for 10 years. That's essentially become a non-negotiable with Comcast. It does allow us to continue having 2 what they call EG channels, which are governmental channels. At one point during the previous term of the agreement, SACA was running one, and SACA has expressed an interest in reinstituting that channel. There's a second channel for programming as well, governmental or educational programming. And I can answer any other questions that you might have.
Thank you. I do have a question. Obviously, these agreements are 10 years in length. Should there be a change of provider, Comcast merges with another corporation, does that mean we renegotiate this contract at that time, or does that continue for the length?
No, anybody that would buy Comcast or merge with Comcast would merge and buy subject to this agreement.
Great. And one other question that I had was just, do we get any say in how they disclose this franchise fee, or who it's paid to, or how it's communicated?
It's listed on the billings. They're allowed to pass it through, and they're required to list it as a separate pass-through item, so it does show. There are requirements in the agreement that their bills be clear and precise. If we end up with issues about of lack of preciseness, we can certainly raise them with Comcast.
Terrific. I have one note under that regard, and actually looking at my own Comcast bill, I was able to verify this, but the bills actually list the number to our city clerk, Mr. Harris, as the contact, and it is a little bit confusing in that it's listed right before the questions about your account phone number, and so subsequently, Mr. Harris receives a lot of calls about people's Comcast accounts.
Well, I think we can certainly address that.
So if we could have that separated from one another.
I think that would be a wise idea, and I will certainly pass that on to
Not a
Mr.
great
Cohen
use
to
of our
communicate directly to
City clerk's
Comcast.
time, so thank you for that.
Sure.
Are there any other questions or comments from the committee? From other members of council? From the public? Then I'll hear a motion on this bill.
Motion to move Administration Bill Number 1, 2022 to the January 11th council meeting.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you
you,
very
councilors.
much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. And that brings us to our fourth item for Finance Committee. This is a presentation from the Lancaster Parking Authority. We have Larry Cohen with us this evening. He'll be speaking about parking meter rates. Welcome. Thank you.
Good evening. You want me at table?
Wherever you're most
Podium?
comfortable, wherever you'd like to be.
I'm farther away, so I'll take my mask off.
Okay.
Well, first, I want to form a complaint to Mr. Harris about my cable bill as well.
Right.
At least it wasn't a parking complaint. Good evening, everyone. I'm Larry Cohen, Executive Director of the Parking Authority. Congratulations to new council members. Good to see other council members in person after some time here. I did provide in advance some bullet points I'm going to run through. I thought it'd be a good idea that since I have not been in front of council for a while, to just give you a quick background on what the Parking Authority is, and then kind of do a little bit deeper dive, and obviously if there's any questions. So as background, the Parking Authority is an independent municipal authority. We function like a small business within the city. The city backs our debt in case we default, and the LPA revenues pay our expenses to support our staff, programs, assets, including investments in new technology to enhance the customer experience. LPA has nearly 1,200 meter spaces. The majority are old-fashioned single meters that accept coins and now mobile app payment. The Central Business District has 46 multi-space kiosks. Each kiosk covers 5 to 20 spaces, depending upon the layout of that block. The kiosk accepts coins, mobile payment, credit cards, and dollar bills. The Park Mobile or Park Lancaster app provides ease of use and promotes compliance over enforcement. So that is very important for us. We want folks to pay their meters, but we really don't want to give them tickets. With the mobile app, since you're able to pay for the meter or kiosk, you can add time from anywhere in the city, which lessens your chance of getting a ticket. This is a huge customer service enhancement program, really a game changer in the parking industry that we've provided in the last several years. And anyone who uses the mobile app is very happy to use it, and I could say rarely gets parking tickets. The city has no parking minimums required by new development within the Central Business District. So developers do not have to provide parking as part of their development projects anymore. This burden falls on the parking authority. So the total parking burden in the Central Business District is borne by the parking authority to make sure that there is adequate parking for current business and also future development and business that would be coming downtown. Our request and justification is the parking authority is coming to City Council with a proposed increase to parking meter rates for on-street parking, with no increase proposed for our parking garages. I'm happy to say Dave Achel is also in attendance here. The Downtown Investment District Executive Committee, I presented our proposal to them last week, and they support our proposal without objection. I will also be going to the merchant meeting on January 19th to present the same information I'm providing here today. I also took into account some recommendations from the Downtown Investment District on a previous proposal and made some recommended changes to what we are presenting today. Our current rates are $1.50 per hour throughout the city, and current rates are $1.50 throughout the city. They are less than our garage rates. So our on-street rates are less than our parking garage rates. The garage rates are $2 per hour for the first 2 hours and $1 per hour thereafter. So basically the rates within the city are upside down. And I will define that for you in a second. But with the rates upside down, that really does not promote the turnover businesses need. Our limited on-street spaces should be greater and higher price than our garage rates to promote turnover of the on-street spaces, to serve the business community and move longer-term parkers into the garages. Best practices for Central Business District blocks states that 20% of on-street space should be available at all times for folks to shop downtown. The best analogy I give of this is if you were to go to Park City Mall and park at the furthest point from the mall, you could be, I don't know, half a mile away from your destination of where you want to go to, but because the mall's within line of sight, you don't think you're that far away. It's a different analogy downtown. Folks who are coming to shop downtown want to be able to see the business that they're shopping at from where they're parking. So folks even who have to park around the block from where they're trying to go do their business think they're parking too far away, even though it's just around the block. So that's the perception. So it even makes it that more imperative that those spaces in front of our businesses are available for turnover as much as possible. I will also point to during our COVID period where street parking was free for several months, what you saw was employees parking in the city blocks all day, all the time, and taking up all the space to get to any of the businesses downtown. What transpired from that was creating pickup and drop-off loading zones for businesses. So at least there was some area that we could enforce to make sure spaces were open. And eventually we went back to enforcement, because that's why paid parking is what it is and why enforcement is what it is, to make sure there's valuable assets on street turnover in proximity to the businesses that are there. The other funny story I like to tell is during the same COVID period, with the street sweeping in RPP, and we weren't doing enforcement, there was no street sweeping going on, that there was a significant increase in vermin activity on the streets. So that definitely reinforced the need for street sweeping and enforcement of street sweeping as well. So the change would largely affect downtown, not the neighborhoods. The last time any meter rates were changed was 11 years ago in January 2011, where all meters citywide were changed to $1.50 an hour. There were some that were at $1 an hour. So this is not something I come to City Council too often. You'll probably see me in 10 years from now, if I'm still around. So the rate change is to $1.50. Was actually 16 years ago in 2006. And before that was 1993. Our comparable city rates in our peer cities, Harrisburg is $4 per hour in their central business district. That was recently raised to that. They have a $2 per hour rate in non-CB. And the city of York is $1.50 an hour in their CBD. The Parking Authority, we run a lean and mean operation. We're running at probably 40% staff than we did pre-COVID. So we are able to pay our bills every month, but this additional revenue, any revenue that we make goes right back into our program. Specifically, the revenue from this increase will be used for new infrastructure and technology upgrades, including ongoing investment in electric vehicle charging stations, which we currently provide for free to customers in all of our parking garages. We would look for probably expansion to on-street opportunities for electric vehicle charging in the neighborhoods for those folks who don't park in our garages. The money generated from this would go directly toward initiatives such as that in the coming years. The Parking Authority received no PPP or CARES Act money to support losses totaling $2.5 million during the majority of the pandemic. $2 million was in lost revenues and $500,000 in unreimbursed salaries paid. And as I stated, we are a lean and mean operation, and we maintain even today, always looking to cut expenses, but we are running at about 40% less staffing right now than we were at pre-COVID levels. So the proposal for you to debate today to move the council for vote, we recommend an increase of $1 per hour from $1.50 per hour to $2.50 per hour with an overall revenue impact of about $600,000 to our bottom line to put back in the infrastructure of our technology, our garages, our on-street, our EV charging in the future, to enhance our customer experience, whether in the CBD or in the neighborhoods. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cohen. Do you, and maybe this is a question for Mr. Harris, does this needs to come through a resolution or a bill, I'm assuming?
Yes, this
Okay.
comes as an ordinance.
Terrific. So this is just a preliminary discussion this evening for everyone's clarification.
Yeah, we do have the draft
Okay,
resolution, but we figured we'd just talk today.
I appreciate that. And do you have a time frame of when that you might be bringing an actual, like the draft forward to us
We would hope, right after this meeting, we would
Okay.
probably provide that for the next,
for next month?
conversation at the council.
Terrific. Thank you. I do have a couple of questions, and I'll turn it over to the committee then as well. You mentioned that central business district blocks in best practice should have about 20% availability. Have we looked at what our availability is during peak times? Do we know what that looks like?
Significantly less.
Okay.
We're running, I mean, there's obviously a lot of factors, COVID, pre-COVID, but typically we are at almost 100% capacity during peak utilization time downtown.
Great.
I mean, and part of also the issue is, I mean, if trying to cut down the vehicular traffic circling, looking for parking, so the whole carbon footprint impact and such. So yeah, the goal is to, when a car is driving in that block and that's where their business is, that they can, not 100% of the time, but the majority of the time be able to park within that block.
And you mentioned the rate increase would affect downtown. Do we have any meters outside of the central business district? And if so, how many?
Yeah, I don't, well, there's 1,200 total meters.
Okay.
Central Business District is about 800 of them.
Okay.
So the remaining are outside.
Terrific. Are there other questions from members of the committee?
If I may. Do you have any idea about how much of the people parking are Lancaster City residents versus people coming in to just shop?
In the Central Business District on street, I would say the majority are folks from outside of the city.
Thank you. That's my only question.
Thank you, Councilor Garcia Molina.
And we can also, and just to add on to that, we can also, I mean, we can pull metrics off of the app that shows that majority of these folks are coming from outside of the city.
Perfect. Other members of council? Councilor Craig, I saw.
Thank you, Councilor Bethea. Correct me if I'm wrong, but the garage rates would be different. The parking garage rates would be different than the metered rates at this point if we go with the change.
Yeah, the garage rates will not be changing. What I tried to outline is right now it is, don't tell anybody, but it's cheaper to park on street for 2 hours than to park in the garage for 2 hours. So right now it costs $3 to park on street for 2 hours, and it costs $4 to park off street in our garage and $6 to park in another lot for 2 hours. So it's really reverse of what it should be when you're making up a perfect parking program system for a city. You're on street, your most valuable asset should be higher priced than the garage. So that will, number one, the goal is to create turnover of the on-street spaces. And the goal is to take the folks who park long-term to park in the garage versus on the street as well. So it's kind of a two-prong approach. In a passive format of pricing will eventually impact the decisions that folks make.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilor Calixte?
Yeah, thank you for being here. The proposal sounds interesting, but I have a couple of questions. And could you please tell us how you came up with a dollar increase? Why not 50 cents or something lower than that? Is there any criteria that you use in order to come up with that increase?
Yeah, well, I think the criteria was number one, which I just outlined as far as making sure the on-street spaces are more than the garage. Number two, looking at our comparable peer cities and getting a feel for what they're charging for on-street versus off-street. Number three is this is not something historically nor in the future, nor that I'm telling you that I'm going to come here wanting to do this too often. So although I can't predict 10 years from now or 5 years from now, historically this is something that we're going to do and it's going to be around for a long time. So based on market conditions as well, would play an impact on doing that. And probably the fourth point is we did talk with the Downtown Investment District folks about a tiered increase. And the agreement was it's better to just rip the Band-Aid now and get it done with and be done with it for a long time versus having to come back and redo it again.
Okay, Thank you. There is another question. You mentioned that the revenue collected from this new rate will be invested in infrastructure and technology upgrades, and even in electric vehicle charging stations. But while we know that most of citizens of the city, they don't have electric cars. So could you please be a little bit more specific about what kind of infrastructures and technology upgrades that you would invest the money in?
Sure. Well, I can talk specifically about the EV and then address some other things as well. We were the first municipality. We put in electric vehicle charging stations within our garages. I think it's been at least 3 years, if not 4 or 5 years. At least 4 years ago, we were kind of cutting edge and putting EV charging into our garages and providing it free of charge to folks parking in the garages. We've had, it's not something that's needed today in great mass, but it's something that we see in the future that can benefit the neighborhoods. I get calls on occasion from folks in the community say, I don't park in your garages. I want to support the environment. I want to get an EV, but we don't have the charging capabilities in the neighborhoods. So I don't think it'd be something mass done, but I think there are some opportunities to pilot some good programs to promote electric vehicle. I drive an electric vehicle. I know some other mayors and such drive electric vehicles. So that's kind of the EV component of things. As far as other changes, and I don't want to get too much in the weeds on this, but our parking equipment in our garages is 15 years old. Our software that we're using is significantly outdated. So we want to upgrade our software, which is typically about $1 million to do program-wide. And we're looking to do enhancements that will benefit our monthly parkers, our visitors to the city with opportunities for different types of validations, ease of access, getting in and out of the garages, maybe sometime in the near future, Easy Pass coming in and out of the garages, really looking toward a future parking program that provides ease of access, ease of payment for everyone utilizing our facilities, in addition to expansion of our on-street mobile app opportunities where I'm looking toward a future with a mobile app where it's an interactive, kind of like a Waze for parking. So if you park in this block, you could get a coupon that says, hey, stop into X coffee shop for 10% off while you're parked here. So there's just an abundance of really cool technologies that we'd like to start investing in and putting forward. That's just a couple examples, but we need to update a lot of things.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
If I may, Councilor?
Councilor Arroyo?
Yeah, thank you. First, thank you for bringing this to council prior to the resolution and an opportunity to discuss the idea. A couple of questions that I have is the Hager parking lot specifically. I know right now there's some proposals for some potential development in that area. If development were to happen and those parking spaces were removed, does the parking authority believe that those parking spaces can be absorbed through the garages? And do you anticipate that causing indirectly a price increase in the future because of less parking spaces downtown?
Right. Well, I don't want to speak on behalf of the Hager owners, but I will tell you that it's been fairly publicized that they're going to develop there's 2 parking lots, one with the entrance on Prince and one on the entrance on King. And the proposal that they're hopefully moving forward is development of the parking on King, which would cut their parking availability in half. We're fortunate that we have the Prince Street garage, which is kind of our catch-all garage. When everything else in the city, believe it or not, pre-COVID, when everything else in the city is full, we utilize our Prince Street garage. And the old mayor used to say when he knew the roof, when we had cars on the roof, he knew we were busy downtown. And we will get back to that point where the roof of the garage is at capacity again. So I'm confident in proximity to their lot, we will be able to handle additional demand. In addition, I would tell you that they raised their rates they're $3 an hour now, and no, there wasn't a blink as far as their demand, just because of location. And I will also say we'll be opening our Christian Street garage tentatively for March 1st, which will give us some new inventory, which is actually needed. Even now, we have wait lists even today for many of our garages. So
Great. And my last question, kind of moving the other way, I know we're talking about price increases, but in line with the city's climate action plan, has there been thought in potentially discounts or incentives for smaller or electric vehicles to park, be it cheaper rates for parking, cheaper spots in the garage? I know we offer free charging stations, which is great, but are there other incentives that have been talked about potentially from a pricing standpoint?
yeah. Well, I do. I've been fortunate. I do serve on the climate action plan component that whatever I'm involved in. I will say we're open to. I'm an electric vehicle owner myself. I serve on the state EV coalition for EV, so I'm a pretty big proponent of doing whatever we can to promote its use. And I think we've been cutting edge as far as what we've done downtown before anyone else was even putting in electric vehicle charging stations that we've done. So I think I'm open to those types of opportunities.
All right. Would love to discuss ideas.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
yes. Thank you. Yeah.
That's all the questions I've had.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Garcia Molina.
Just to follow up, I don't like paying for the parking tickets today, far less like paying for extended periods of time, but you're doing a good job selling me. I think the way that you're talking about this in terms of businesses and talking about this in terms of being greener is a really good way to educate the community around what's truly happening here. So what is the communication to the community going to be around the reasons why we're increasing these prices? Because I think you're communicating it well to us now. So what's that communication going to be to the community?
Yeah, so we're at the infancy of communication. As I said, we've met with the Downtown Investment District Executive Committee with oversight of the downtown businesses, right? And I took some of their feedback and made some changes to our proposal based on their feedback. My next step is going to the merchant meeting. So that's a larger group of business owners on January 19th. And then we will be putting out a press release and identifying what we're doing and getting them out through media and social media. And I'm sure Amber will help us as well.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor?
If I could just say, I had the opportunity recently to go to Upper Darby, Pennsylvania, and I had never been there before, and scouted out a parking garage and was really excited that it was free parking garage. I thought, how on earth do they provide a free parking garage that was multi-deck? And then I got inside the garage and I realized that it was in such bad repair and was so dingy, not lit well, like cracks in the concrete. It was terrible. And I think that it's always good to travel outside of our community and see how other places do it. And I think in our line of work, our awareness of these things has been elevated given the work and the issues that come before us. And so I think in a lot of ways we take for granted the quality of the infrastructure, the fact that there is a Park Mobile app, that we do have EV charging stations. I can tell you as an electric car driver, when I go to Harrisburg, there's exactly 2 EV charging stations in the city of Harrisburg. That was when I was going there before all of COVID stuff. They may have added more, but the fact that they are so limited runs absolutely counter to what you were talking about, Councilor Arroyo, and the future, because there is a massive undertaking that's happening right now through the infrastructure bill to add more and more electric charging stations across the country, and 2 huge investments in Ford Motor Company that are happening in the Southeast to build new electrical vehicles. And so the tide is turning and we are ahead, and that is because of leadership of the Parking Authority, and I just wanted to call that out. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate that. And And it just reminded me, I guess we do take it, right, we do take some things for granted, but I'm entering my 12th year, actually, as of yesterday. It's the longest I've ever been anywhere, but I love it here, and I love my job, and made it a point in my first year that to really put tenfold the amount of money that went back into our infrastructure, because we have garages that are 40, 50 years old, and I was not going to take part in a conversation about tearing things down. So we put over $1 million a year into structural rehab. And in this past year, even as things were down, we put significant funds into the Penn Square garage for painting and new signage if you ever park in there to go to the convention center or Marriott. So yeah, we take pride. We treat it like our own business. My staff and I have my director of finance here and my director of operations. We take pride and we treat it like it's our own business. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Are
So
there
the
any
great thing
other-
is that all the new revenue that we generate will go right back into the program. And you'll see the changes from it. So.
Thank you, Mr. Cohen. Are there any other comments or questions from the public? If you could please just come up to the podium and start with your first and last name and your street of residence, and limit your comments to 3 minutes.
Sure.
Please.
My name is Jonathan Brown. I live at 209 North Lime Street, and my question is for the presenter. I'm not remembering your name, but recognizing that that teleworking is here to stay, I wondered if, because this is a rate increase with a lot of promises of what more we're going to do, are there challenges right now with revenue that it is low? And my concern is that I don't think it's realistic to believe it will come back to what it was unless development increases, because I know I work in Harrisburg, as Mayor Srirachi just was talking about, and I park in the 7th Street garage, and since COVID's return, there is never more cars than the first level any day. So yeah. I'm really concerned that you're actually going to lose revenue and that this might be needed to fill that. So.
Well, it's a great question. I appreciate your kind of keen sense of what's happening out there. I think we're really blessed to be in this community. I could tell you, I mean, we just approved our budget for 22, and you know, unless there's something else crazy on the horizon, we're very optimistic of what the future brings. Even today, and I think I mentioned it, even as we sit here today, we have wait lists, significant wait lists for our garages, even with telecommuting and folks not coming into work. Part of that is our monthly rate is $75. If you break that down to a daily rate, it's, forget the math, it's less than $4 a day, I think, to park in our garages. Where in Harrisburg, it costs, I think, an average of a couple $100 a month to park.
It's about $250.
Okay, so Harrisburg is $250 a month for monthly parking. Our wonderful city is $75 a month for monthly parking. So even those who are, I mean, you know, limited back to work scenario, even folks who come in 3 days a week, the monthly rate is still, they're still going to keep their monthly because it's so inexpensive compared to a city like Harrisburg, if that makes sense.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any others? Terrific. Then, Mr. Harris, is the expectation that we're moving anything forward this evening, or will we just simply discuss this at the upcoming meeting?
I'm sorry, we're anticipating discussing this again in a month when the ordinance comes before us proposed ordinance would come before us.
Great. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Cohen. We really appreciate your presentation this evening and the opportunity to speak to it before we have a finalized resolution is always appreciated.
And thank you for your great questions and
Good
for your
discussion.
time. I appreciate it. If you have anything else, feel free to reach out.
Thank you very much. Then with that, Mr. President, that concludes the Finance Committee this evening.
Thank you, Councilor Bakay. We go then to the Public Safety Committee, chaired by Councilor Diaz, with standing members Councilor Arroyo and Councilor Garcia Molina.
Yes, Mr. President, we have Administration Resolution Number 07-2022, amending the Civil Service Rules. And at this time, I would ask if Patrick is there to speak and give us an enlightenment, because the only thing I see currently is any conflict between the rules of testing providers. The civil service rules and regulations shall be controlled by the testing providers' policies. Is Patrick there?
Thank you, Councilor Diaz, and thank you for your flexibility. Patrick is gesturing to Mr. Handwerger, our solicitor.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you. Good evening again. Sometime last year, you previously approved the modifications to the police rules of civil procedure for the Civil Service Commission. What prompted us to be here today is that those rules increased the score on the promotional exams to 80%. After some discussions with the union following that and discussions internally, the Police Bureau and the Civil Service Commission determined that we need to move those back to 70% for labor purposes. And as part of that, Chief Bay then, in conjunction with the Civil Service Commission and his staff and my office, reviewed the rules and regulations completely once again to try and make sure that they are as up-to-date as possible and contain flexibility for moving things forward. The rule changes that are before you today are essentially designed, in addition to that scoring issue we just mentioned, to assure that there are less obstacles than ever before to applicants applying for and being considered for positions in the Bureau of Police. A couple of kind of minor changes in the rules and regs are that in some places they referred to it as the Police Bureau, in some places the department. That's now been made consistent to be the Police Bureau everywhere. There's only now one place in the rules and regulations where previously there might have been 4 or 5 that reference the relevant scoring on each of the exams. So the written and oral exams are now governed for applicants in Section 18 of the rules, and that's consistent throughout the document. With respect to the oral examination board, the existing rules provide that there may be up to 2 members of the Police Bureau. We've determined that we would like, and the Civil Service Commission has determined that it would like to have that be, there shall be 2 members of the Police Bureau to make sure that the commission itself can't exclude the Bureau from the hiring process and the interview process. The board can be significantly greater than 2 members, including members of HR, including other police, members from outside and other individuals with experience, but certainly the command staff of your police bureau should be involved in seeing and hearing from potential applicants that are going to go on to their hiring list. There's a provision in the rules that requires you, City Council, to appoint a police psychologist or psychiatrist. The Bureau and the Commission are asking that the rules be modified to continue that, but to make sure they have specific training in police psychology. And believe it or not, there is a large science to that with certifications that are referenced in the rules. Previously, the rules contained provisions for background investigations, which continue today. One thing that was not clear was a right for an applicant to appeal a removal from the list or a, quote, failure of a background investigation. To be, again, completely fair to the applicant and to assure that no biases are being presented in the process, these rules now propose that they would have the right to appeal that determination to the Civil Service Board, so that if they don't agree with the findings of the background investigation, which is conducted by the Bureau, they have a right to have the independent body review that and make a ruling on it. Again, with scoring in your previous rules for the patrolman candidates, they were increased to 80% on the written exam. When they were increased, we were going off of data from previous years, pre-COVID, pre-George Floyd. We were of the opinion that we had far more applicants for positions that we were going to actually hire, and limiting the review to those who just received an 80 on the introductory written exam would be a good idea. Quite frankly, the number of applicants has obviously declined subsequent to George Floyd. These rules now suggest moving that back to 70, but allowing the board, the Civil Service Commission, to change that in advance of a test, provided they make announcements to everybody that would be testing, and provided that it's posted on all the applicable websites, including the Bureau's website and the city's website. No anticipation that they will increase anytime soon, given what we're seeing nationwide with recruitment in the police field. But again, reducing that back down to 70 is allowing more applicants to apply and hopefully enabling the Bureau to continue recruitment efforts. A new rule was added to clarify that any action of the Bureau or the Civil Service Commission through the process can be appealed to the Civil Service Commission. That was always the law, but it wasn't set forth clearly in the rules and regulations. So now everybody can see, yes, this is the way the process should work. So that's what's before you today. Again, the civil service rules are to be adopted by the Civil Service Commission with the consent and approval of City Council, and hence Civil Service Commission has unanimously approved these, including votes by two of the alternate members who were present at the meeting. So everybody present at the last meeting approved these changes to the rules and regs for your police bureau and the police civil service examination process. Chief Bay is here with me to answer any additional questions you might have as it relates to this.
Chief Bay, does anybody in City Council and the committee would like to ask any questions to Chief Bay?
Councilor Diaz, if I may.
Go ahead.
I think my one question is just, and it's good to hear that the Civil Service Board unanimously, voted to move these ahead. I'm interested to know what the conversations were like, and if a conversation has been had with the bargaining unit about the changes and how they feel about them.
So with respect to this is a non-bargaining issue. So no discussions have been held with the bargaining unit regarding the Civil Service Commission rules and regulations, other than the issue with respect to the promotional exam scores, which are essentially governed by our ordinance and by our union contract. Right. To the extent, again, this applies to people that are not members of the union because they're not yet employees of the city. In terms of the conversations, it's a public meeting. There was significant conversation about each of the rules. We went through each change. Questions were discussed and comments were made about why they were being done, how they were being done, and whether they would have merit. And again, I don't feel compelled or able to recite each conversation, but I do feel comfortable in saying there was thorough discussion regarding all of the rules, and you have what I believe is a fairly esteemed and solid Civil Service Commission with quite a bit of diversity, including a former police chief, a former representative of Fire Bureau, Mr. Darkus, who was a former council member. I feel very comfortable that those folks on the Civil Service Commission took this process seriously and approved these, knowing that they are for the best for the city of Lancaster.
Thank you. That's all I had, Councilor Diaz.
Anyone else in the council would like to ask any questions?
Councilor Diaz?
Yes.
Thank you. Just to elaborate on the process for appealing a background, is there anything that would preclude someone through the background checks? Can you elaborate that and maybe speak on the time frame that's put forth? Like, how long does someone have to appeal it? Because obviously these are there's a time frame for these appointments as well.
Sure. The rules provide that anybody aggrieved by any action of the Bureau or the Commission with respect in any part of the process would have to appeal by filing appeal with the Secretary of the Civil Service Commission within 10 days of receiving notice of that action. So for example, the way the process is set up now, you would first take your physical test. If you pass that, you then move on to the written exam. If you pass the written exam, you move on to the oral exam. Once you pass the oral exam, you would then have, before being certified onto the list, the background investigation performed. So that would be at the tail end. If during that background investigation, which is conducted by the Bureau notified the applicant that they viewed their application as being insufficient for failure to meet the standards set forth in the background investigation, that applicant would have the ability to appeal that decision to the Civil Service Commission, who would then hear the evidence directly from the Bureau of Police on what they found in the background examination and from the applicant as to why they don't think that's appropriate for removal from the list, and be able to make a fair and objective determination as to that.
And when they learn of that, do they know exactly what it is that came up on the background check that would eliminate them?
They will receive two things from the Bureau with the background exam. One, they will receive a written notice that they did not pass the background examination. They can appeal it. They would have also received a phone call with specific information as to why they failed it.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Counselor Diaz. That's all I had.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, with that, I would make a motion to move it forward then to January 11th full council meeting.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, councilors.
Thank you. Thank you so much, and thank you, Chief Bay, for being there. And the next thing I have, I guess, right now, it looks like is public safety briefing, conditional appointments for the firefighters. Since I can't see, can you tell me who's available to speak on that?
Chief Little is coming to the podium.
Great.
Good evening,
thank you.
councilors. So tonight, we're going to talk just briefly about where we're at with the process. We would have liked to have the 14 names in front of you this evening, but HR is still conducting pre-employment background and medical evaluations on our candidates. So as you know, we have 14 conditional offers out right now to potential new hires that will go to the Fire Academy at the end of January. So the first part of that is a 5-week EMT Academy, which will get certified as Pennsylvania State EMTs, followed by the 8 weeks of fire rescue and hazmat training. And currently those 14 are going again through the process, through background checks, their psychological eval, and also medical evaluations before attending the academy at the end of the month. So that's kind of where we're at in that process, and we're hopeful, speaking with HR today, we can have all the background information done and completed and present those 14 names to you at the next council meeting. Any questions, council?
If I may, Chief Little, from those applications or the ones that are going to be appointed, can you tell me if any of them are female or if they're of different culture or different race?
So that was a question that was already presented to me at the budget presentation in December by 2 members of council, and they both received that information.
Thank you. Any questions from the committee? Any questions for full council? Thank you, Chief Little, for the update.
Yeah, thank you.
And Chief Little, you anticipate having those names by the 11th?
We're hopeful.
Hello?
Councilor Diaz? Oh, yes. Did you hear Mr. Harris and Chief Little's response?
No, I didn't.
That's okay. Mr. Harris had asked if the names would be had by the 11th, and Chief Little responded that he is hopeful that we will have the names, but there was no comment after that.
Okay, thank you very much. And that concludes public safety, President Waddell.
Thank you very much, Councilor Diaz. We go then to the Community Planning Committee chaired by Councilor Craig, whose standing members are Councilor Arroyo and Councilor Calixte.
Thank you, Council President. Community Planning Committee is meeting, and we have one item on the agenda, the review of the Historical Commission recommendations for the LGH Hanken project at Prince, Queen, and Frederick Streets. And I do believe I saw Suzanne. Let me put my eyes back on. Yes, please.
And we have the applicants here as well.
Okay, great.
Counselor Craig, if I may, Mr. Harris, are the microphones on the table live?
They should be.
If you would like. I mean,
Yeah, that would be wonderful if we could use the table. That way we could have everybody at the same time.
my apologies, Counselor Craig. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Council President. Good evening. Thank you for coming.
Good evening. Neil Fisher with the Hanken Group. Nice to see everybody again.
Okay, so let's proceed and just give us a review.
This is, I know it's been in the press a lot, reviewed by other boards for the city. But in terms of the Historical Commission, it's probably one of the longest projects that they have reviewed, and then it's been about a year and a half. They started in September 2020 and just concluded this past December. I will give the applicant credit for using conceptual discussion process in the way I've never seen used before, but it was used well in that they kept coming back to the Historical Commission as they worked both creatively through the project redesign and worked through logistical and financial issues. The Commission's initial concern was removal of 2 historic buildings along Frederick Street. There's a tavern, an old tavern right at the corner of Prince, and then a carriage house along Frederick Street. They thought that it was important to retain those buildings because they helped hold the residential scale along Frederick Street, that there was large development that was going to face existing row houses. They thought it was important to hold those. They never had an issue with 2 of the historic buildings on Queen Street. They also had some questions about the new construction, and the applicant did work through the issues and came back with a project that the Commission was very happy with, and I hope they thought it was a more successful project as well.
Wonderful. I currently do not have any questions. There may be one in a little bit, but are there any questions from the committee?
If I may, Councilor Craig?
Go ahead.
Just out of curiosity, I know in the beginning of the project, there was a lot of discussion around engaging the neighborhood around this project. How did those conversations come about, and what was some of the feedback you heard from some of the neighbors?
I'm sorry, I had a little hard time hearing you. Did you ask about discussions with the neighbors?
Yeah, just curious as to how the public engagement process has been, and what were some of the feedback that?
So as you know, Lancaster General Health is part of the project as well. And one of the things that was done because of COVID, normally Lancaster General, when they provide or conduct a project within the city, they do an outreach program and they hold charrettes within the hospital. Because of COVID, that was not an option. So instead, what we did was we put pamphlets out to the neighborhoods within a certain number of blocks radius around the project to make people aware. We did have a few residents that did respond, and we answered their questions. One of the neighbors had conversations with one of the neighbors regarding the project. And then the comments stopped coming, and I believe that people were satisfied with the answers. That was above, just so you know, that was above and beyond what the normal public notices that would go out in the mail and things of that nature.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's very well appreciated. This is going to be a pretty large project for that side of the neighborhood, so it's very much appreciated to engage the neighborhood.
We're very excited about it.
Any other questions from the committee? Council as a whole?
Councilor Craig, I just have a question, and you provided us with the updated renderings, and I appreciate that. Just to orient ourselves, and there was a lot of talk about was it the tavern building that's at the corner there? That particular building. Can you talk about how that is going to be integrated into this plan? What will its use be? I'm trying to decipher drawings, but it might just be easier if you just talk us through it.
Sure. Mr. Harris, could I ask you to kind of flip through?
Yep.
I'm looking specifically at it's numbered 24 on the bottom. I'm not sure.
Maybe if we start, we can go, there you can actually, if you slide up, you can see, jump back one slide maybe. Look, there you go. Oh. A site layout, we could go to like an overall site layout. Page 10, let's go to page 10. I think that's good. So just to orient everybody, Prince Street's on the left-hand side, Frederick is at the top along the north. Market Street runs down through the center of the two sides, and Queen Street is on the right-hand side. The Queen Street, the LGH parking garage, the seven-story parking garage, is directly opposite of this project on Queen Street. On Prince Street, directly opposite of our project, is the parking lot for Barnstormer Stadium. Just to orient everybody. So at the intersection of Prince and Frederick's, that's where the tavern building is, and that's also where the carriage house is. We designed a multifamily building that will wrap around the tavern and the carriage house. There'll be amenity space within the inside that will bleed out onto Frederick Street through two openings. One that's located between the tavern and the carriage house, and the other that's located between the carriage house and our proposed project. And those will be kind of gateways for pedestrians to access into the project area. The tavern will ultimately become retail on the first floor and then 2 residential units. So it will be integrated from that standpoint. One of the things that I know was a desire of, certainly from a planning standpoint for the city, was to make sure that try to maintain some retail for street activity on that corner. So we did it. We're trying to accomplish that. The carriage house today is a garage on the first floor, and then the upper floor is apartments. We're going to stay with that same theme, whereas the first floor will be used for maintenance for the project, so we can have, for spare refrigerators, things of that nature, or maintenance staff that can utilize that space to maintain the project. And then, as I said, the upper floors will be residential. So they're being integrated into the project from that standpoint. It's also, they're being integrated from an architectural standpoint. Originally, our initial concept was a taller building on that side. In going through the process with the Historic Commission, we lowered the building so that the architecture didn't appear to overwhelm the historic buildings. At the end of the day, this was something that was desired by us and also the Historic Commission.
Great.
So, did I answer your question?
Yes, thank you. I appreciate that. And I think it maybe remind us from the first pass of this project did not include keeping that at all. Is that right?
That's correct.
That's where we've come from.
Just, as the initial pass or, concept, we thought a new face on the corner was something that was important to create a whole new vibrant space throughout the project. I'd have to say that as we've going through the process, and certainly we gained a lot of appreciation for what the city has done from a historic preservation standpoint throughout the city. And then therefore that also caused us to reorient the building and alter our design.
Thank you. Just speaking personally, I appreciate that we were able to get from there to where we are today. So thank you very much. And thank you, Councilor Craig.
Any further questions from council? Questions from the public? Thank you so much. I really appreciate your fortitude in working with the Historical Society and Commission and getting done everything that has been done thus far without damaging the character of the neighborhood. So thank you.
You're welcome. It was a pleasure. You have a great staff to work with.
That will conclude community planning.
Thank you, Counselor, and thank you both. All right, we go then to the Economic Development Committee, chaired by Counselor Arroyo, whose standing members are Counselor Craig and Counselor Bakay.
Thank you, Council President. At this moment, I'd like to call Director Delfs to speak. We have a few updates on the American Rescue Plan Act, as well as the RFP updates as well. Director Delfs.
Thank you, Councilor. Thank you for the introduction. Good evening to the rest of the council and to Mayor and members of the public. Just a few brief updates today about the American Rescue Plan Act process. I know we've had some conversation about this project moving ahead. Our first update is that during our last meeting about this topic, we shared with you that we would be issuing a request for proposals seeking a firm to assist with grant administration services. We did indeed issue that RFP in late December. That RFP focuses specifically on a handful of activities. I'm actually pulling this language from the RFP, some important information in the introduction that I wanted to call your attention to. The first primary activity is drafting solicitations for award of city ARPA funds. The second activity is determining the applicable grant requirements to include in such solicitations. Number three, providing assistance and guidance in evaluating responses to such solicitations. And number four, managing grant recipients' compliance with awards given for such solicitations. So all of that adds up to say that we are seeking that consultant support to bolster staff resources to accomplish those goals. The deadline for submitting proposals for this particular response, the response to the RFP, excuse me, is January 27th, 2022. So by the end of January this month, we hopefully will have some proposals in hand in response to our RFP. One thing that I think is helpful to note, we've talked about ARPA so far largely in terms of housing and affordable housing. At this time, the city staff has begun to sketch some ideas related to an affordable housing RFP that fulfills the goals of the city's interim housing strategy, which we presented at the end of last year. The intent is to bring on this grant services firm to help complete this task. We'll have other tasks on the horizon as well related to ARPA solicitations, but the first task at hand that this firm can help us with is related to the affordable housing RFPs. Next, in related news, the city solicitor has been working with a law firm to develop a checklist of federal procurement requirements to ensure we meet the federal ARPA requirements with respect to contracting and dispensation of funds. So that's a related effort, related but separate effort that Mr. Handwerker has been leading lately as well. Finally, related update, but separate from our RFP news, I also wanted to let the council and the public know that the acquisition of 838 Marietta Avenue was accomplished successfully on December 16th. HDC Mid-Atlantic now owns the property and is under agreement to develop the site as multifamily affordable housing. So very good news. I know it's an early step in the process, but a really important one. The city and HDC adopted a restrictive covenant on that land declaring that the owner shall create and maintain a minimum of 20 affordable units and a maximum of 50 affordable units in the project at 40 to 80% of median family income. So that's all I have for you today. I welcome any questions about the updates or any related topics. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Dels, for the update. Quick question. As I understand, the deadline is January 27th. When are we hoping to have a selection made and announced to the public?
Do we know? Come on up, Barry.
It's January 29th that the bids are due. Typically, we leave ourselves 60 days. Our hope would be that we can thoroughly analyze and vet the applicants within a 30-day period. Obviously, it's not a small endeavor. We're asking them to perform. It's a 5-year contract. So depending on the number of applicants we receive, how much background information and resource and references we have to check, whether we perform an interview process with the applicants, which is anticipated in scheduling, I would say not less than 30, but hopefully not more than 60 in days.
Great, thank you. And in regards to Marietta Ave, what are some next steps for HDC, and when can council anticipate any progress updates, or will there be something coming before council as far as updates for that specific project?
I've not checked in with HDC in the new year, so there has been a little bit of break in time over the holidays. Keep in mind that this is considered HDC's phase 3 as part of the affordable housing work, affordable housing development that they'll be doing in that area in and around the St. Joseph's UPMC campus. I'm not expecting there to be any imminent action on that site. The first phase is 213 College Avenue. Phase 2 is the southeast corner of the campus. This ultimately would be a phase 3. I think there are some steps that HDC will be taking in the interim just to further progress their concept, but I'd have to check in with them, and happy to provide updates at a later time.
Oh, that's helpful to know. Thank you. Any questions from the committee or council?
I'll just add that I reviewed the zoning hearing board agenda today with our zoning hearing officer, Mr. Thrash, and 213 is on that agenda to move forward for a zoning amendment change for multifamily for that first phase 1. And so there are a number of moving parts to these 3 phases, and we appreciate that HDC is keeping all the balls in the air.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Sarachi.
Councilor Royo, if I may. And then, Mayor, the zoning hearing board reports, for lack of a better word, to itself. It makes a decision, and nothing then progresses from there to council. It is empowered in and of itself, or would that change end up coming to us?
No, that change would not come before City Council. That would be within the zoning hearing board itself.
That's what I thought. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Councilor.
Thank you, Council President. Any other questions from council? Questions from the public? Great. Thank you, Director Dels, for the updates. That concludes the Economic Development Committee.
Thank you all.
Yep. Thank you, Director Delphs. Thank you, Councilor Royo. And thank you, councilors, for your flexibility and grace on the spot. We go now to our clerk's report. Mr. Harris.
Yes, Mr. President. And I remind you, of course, that this report was also submitted to you in writing if you care to forego the oral report at this hour. But I'm happy to proceed. So I arranged for the meeting agenda and script for the inaugural meeting last night. I coordinated meeting preparations with the mayor's staff, ordered plaques for departing councilor and controller, a name plea for the incoming councilor, provided food and beverages for the December 11th budget meeting. I participated in onboarding for new council member, ordered an electronic key card, business cards, email address, computer access, and met with the counselor to discuss the counselor's role serving on council. For the board orientation that was mentioned earlier, I gathered email addresses for 32 recent applicants to the city's boards, commissions, and authorities, invited them to the first orientation, and set up that meeting, and we'll be coordinating that. I attended the parking authority meeting and sent you a summary of that discussion. I wrote a cover letter for the anti-Semitism resolution that was adopted last month and got that out, and various other activities.
Thank you. With that, counselors, I'll hear a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.